I call this meeting to order. It is August 20th, 2025 at 7 o'clock p.m. Open public hearing, revision to the fiscal year 2025-2026 annual expenditure budget. And I'll turn it over to you, CFO Eric Thompson.
All right, President Ewers, members of the board, Dr. Driscoll, thanks for having me tonight to talk about the budget revision. So we are here because we did our proposed and adopted budget before the legislature passed their budget. So we didn't have final numbers, final forms. So when that happens, school districts can come back and revise the budget by September 15th. So that's what we're doing. We're also using, because we are able to start in July, we have a decent idea of our enrollment numbers. So we're able to factor that in to the revision, which will decrease the overall budget that we have. But it could eliminate the need for a December revision. ADE makes districts do a revision in December if the funding formula is 1% less than the last budget they had. And so because we're already taking into account the drop of enrollment, we might not have to do a December revision. So the big differences from the adopted budget to the revised budget is going to be the ADM numbers. So we are down for the first time under 9,000 ADM. So we're coming in at 8833. The adopted budget that we had, which was already projected with less enrollment, was at 9,080. So that's a decrease of about 250 from the lower estimate already. So we estimated about a decrease of 1.5% in ADM. It's looking like it's going to be about 4.1%. So a much larger decrease than we had anticipated for that. So for context, overall, I guess that's just the 250, is just the decrease from the adopted. If you're looking at just last year, the final numbers for last year to now, it's almost 400, it's 384 decrease. And that, the schools that we have that are less than that are Curry and McCamey, Rover, Scales, Shamley, Spercali, Ward. You could double Meyer and it would still not have as many students as we lost. So it's a pretty big drop that we've got there. So then, as I've said many times before, kind of the funding, the ADM equals funding. So if we have less enrollment, we have less money. So the financial impact from this drop, so just from the decrease of 247 from the adopted, is about $1.5 million. If you look at the decrease from last year to this year of the 384, we're 2.3 million. So we're already have been spending down our reserves, so less funding is going to impact us even more, and I'll get to that here in a second to kind of show you how that all works. So this sheet here that you're looking at, this is the numbers that we got for last year's funding. So we're going to compare what we had for last year between what we're going to be getting this year. So that's what this is going to be here. So the first one that we're looking at is the big bucket, the revenue control limit. We got about 71.6 million last year. Because of the decrease of enrollment, it's going down about $700,000. That's with a 2% increase. So because the drop of enrollment was that much bigger, even though the funding formula increased by 2%, the amount that we are receiving is going down. For DAA and M&O, this one's a little more complicated because they use prior year enrollment numbers, but they use current year funding formula figures. So the big drop that we had this year isn't impacted yet. Next year it will be impacted. We did have a decrease going into last year, but it was smaller than what we had here. So M&O, the 10 million number actually increased because the funding formula increased by 2% and our drop last year was less than that. So that went up. The DAA, the 5 million, the state did not increase that funding formula. So that decrease that we had is impacting it because we just have fewer students. The only bright spot would be the capital override. So a few years ago, the voters approved increasing it from 5 million to 7 million. It had been 5 million for 20 years. And so this is the first year that that's going to take into effect, where it's increasing up to that 7 million. So that kind of then allows us, that 5 million that we have over here in district additional assistance, districts have the choice to move it into capital or M&O. Because we have 7 million in the override, we're able to move more of that, pretty much all of that, over into M&O. So there's kind of some flowing of funds on that, but that gives us that flexibility because the voters were able to do that. The big thing I want to focus on is the reserves. So we are spending those down. They are shrinking. So going into last year, we brought in 11.1 million. We're going to come out with about 6.3 million. So that difference is we're spending more than is coming in our revenue. We had been able to stockpile and get some reserves in there due to the federal funding, the ESSER dollars. We were able to move expenses to that and increase the carryover, but we've been spending it down. So then that extra 2 million decrease in funding that we're getting because of the drop in enrollment, that's only just going to accelerate this spend down. We do have some one-time funding. So the 614,000, that is a continuation of Prop 123. And then a little less than 500,000, those are one-time funds that we're getting for the second time. So the district additional assistance, that amount that I had mentioned, the rate did not change. The legislature kept that the same. They did increase the funding, but instead of baking it into the formula, they just put it here as one-time increase. I think the plan is that they eventually will get it into that formula, but they're not baking it in yet because it gives them more flexibility later on. But that's about $500,000 between the DAA one-time funding, and then there's free and reduced weights that total up to about the $500,000. So overall, we will have about $108 million to spend in M&O. But what I want to really focus on is 6 million of that is just savings. It's just reserves. Really, the revenue that's coming in is about 101.6 million, but 102 million. It's in that ballpark. Okay, we're spending more than that, but because we have those reserves, we're going to spend it down pretty much all of that. So this is where we're going to have to make cuts going into next year. If we don't, we won't have enough money. So we have the reserves now that we will spend down this year, but going into next year, we're going to have to address the spending. I much prefer to talk about the tax rates. So you can see, kind of look at the bottom there, for the taxes, last year is 4.04, this year 4.34. Slight increase like we had talked about in the past. I think this slide kind of gives a better perspective on that. So you can see it dipped last year and it's kind of right back to where the rates were in 24. Historically though, it's got a steady decrease on that. So it's just kind of more of a big dip last year and it blipped and it's coming right back to where it was. So the tax rates are really just set on how much cash we need. And as assessment value goes up, the rates go down because we would get the same amount there. And then just the summary, just kind of a swoop down and then a swoop back up. So right back to where it was 2 years ago. So with that, if there are any questions, I will be here.
Mrs. Windsor?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I know that 11 million to 6 million is a shock to most of us, as budgets for large businesses are usually. But I was wanting to know, prior to COVID and the ESSER monies that I would say artificially inflated those numbers.
Absolutely, they did.
What do we average on carrying forward?
It was a 2 to 3 million.
Two to
The
3 million.
in the 2s and 3s.
So when you say that we're going to be spending that money down, will we be able to reserve what we normally carry forward, or are we looking at zero carry forward?
We're looking at between 0 and 2. I mean, it's gonna get pretty low.
In this year alone?
It depends on how much cost savings we can do in this year. You know, there might be things where a position comes open and we know, all right, we're not gonna fill that position, for example, and we can have some savings on that. Enrollment can always change. It can get worse, it can get better. And so that can have some impact to it too. But yeah, it's probably gonna get back to about 1 to 2 million is my guess. I don't think it's gonna go much lower than that. We also have some cash reserves in cash funds such as Civic Center, Medicaid, indirect cost that we can move some dollars around to. That can kind of give us as an extra buffer so that if we do get very low, we can move some expenses out into those other funds to keep us, have a higher amount in there in M&O.
Okay, and since you broached the subject of extra funds, my next question is about I think we refer to it as the dead money.
Dead cash?
Dead cash, there you go. Has there been any talk since they were able to utilize it to help pay, what was it, the tax assessment lawsuit?
Yes.
Is there any discussion about us being able to utilize that money?
There has not been any discussion.
Okay. And the last question I have is actually a request. Could you elaborate on why it's important for us to review the tax rate in this conversation?
They're set at this time of the year, so it's one of those things where it's a direct impact to the taxpayer. So when we're addressing it in the budget, I like to bring it up now because it can adjust based on how much money we need to bring in and the evaluation. So the rates are in the budget, so that's why I bring it up here.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Cherry?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for that. I appreciate it. Is there a grade level in particular that is an outlier as far as decreased enrollment, or is it just across the board, or anybody who might know?
I believe it's fairly across the board. Cindy Denton might have more details on that one, but we see a lot of decreases when students shift. So let's say a 5th grade to 6th grade, kind of when they have that choice.
Yeah.
There's more of a decrease on that. But year over year, I would turn it over to you if you have any numbers
I
on
would
that.
say, yes, you are correct. So our biggest loss is between 5th and 6th, and we're still currently collecting data on where those 5th to 6th graders went, as some of those folks might have moved out of state and we haven't received records requests for them yet. So I would say within a month, we'll have a really firm grasp of where did those 5th graders go if they didn't stay with us. We did see loss, though, I believe, at all grade levels. So our kindergarten cohort, for example, is not as large as last year's kindergarten incoming group.
Yeah. I anticipated that, okay. Mr. Thompson, I saw, and I got a text message, there was a court ruling that said that the way that we've been funding M&O was unconstitutional. Are we anticipating any more money from that this year, next year?
I would not anticipate anything this year.
Yeah, okay. I'm of course skeptical in general, but, okay, cool. Do you have you mentioned money in reserves. Is there a target number that we like to shoot for having in that account?
I think ideally it would be more in the range of the 5 to 10 million.
Okay, cool, yeah, okay. And then last one, Mrs. Windsor brought up, of course, COVID reset the bar and everything because of COVID, that reset the bar. Compared to before COVID, like 2019, like the health of where we are right now, is it about what you saw back then? Or, I mean, I know there's fewer students now, but.
The carryover was, more than that 2 to 3 million, but also we were not as high on the revenue side. So that percentage is a little less. I'd say it was more steady on the enrollment. Like I don't think we had a 4% decrease. And when we're in current year funding, when we're having to kind of change the budget on the fly in the middle of the year, it makes it a little more difficult. Before COVID, we had seen decreases, but it was not as sharp as this one. When I started in 2019, right before COVID, I think Ms. Windsor might have been the only one on the board at the time, but we had, for context, our ADM was 10,900. So that was 2,000 more students that we had back then. And that's 4 or 5 schools.
Yeah,
More, and that wasn't that long ago.
right.
So when we're bigger, it kind of gives us, we're healthier financially because there's more flexibility. When things are shrinking, it just kind of narrows that ability to pivot.
Cool. Okay, well, thank you for the work you did on this, appreciate it.
Mr. Lemon?
Thank you, Madam President. I love this presentation because it kind of boiled it down to what we ought to look at. And it explains it a lot better than looking at those huge spreadsheets with adding A, B, and 3 to line 5 over here, and it's just terrible to look at. But I think when I was looking at that, I saw something about our bonds, and we have it here on tax rates, but I didn't know whether it was in this material where we said we're not going to sell all the bonds that we could because we don't want to start paying the interest on them, which made a lot of sense to me.
That's not in here.
Okay.
I mean, you can kind of backtrack it to an extent to say, well, the interest and principal that we have to pay is kind of in here. So in
Yeah.
a way, you can say
Yeah.
the amount that we're not paying is there.
Right.
But that specifically is not.
But in what I'm looking at, the tax rates for 25 and 26, the bonds, it went up about 0.2%.
And as we sell more, it's kind of like your mortgage as well, though. Like, we're making payments and then we're selling more, so it's kind of shrinking on one side and then increasing on the other.
Yeah, and I think when I looked at long-term, I've forgotten where I looked, but it would start to go back down until we sold another batch.
Yeah, and when we do sell bonds, we do have some control over kind of the when the principal's due, when the maturity dates. And so we try to smooth that out so that it's not a big spike and then a dip. So that, the payments make the tax rate somewhat regular so that the taxpayers can kind of plan and have predictability on those as well.
Well, and those are the questions my neighbors ask about why are my taxes going up or the rates going up? But, the amount they pay is pretty much the same.
Yeah, to answer Ms. Windsor's question of why we were talking about it, because I knew Mr. Lemon wanted to talk about tax rates.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am.
Eric, thank you for the presentation. I also want to thank the board. I hope the public can see that this board does their homework before we get up here, and that's why we were kind of asking some questions that might not necessarily have been right on the paper, and you all asked the same questions that I had too. So, and Mrs. Windsor has one more question, but thank you for putting this together. Thanks for continuing to show the transparency. It boils down to we're going to have to make some hard decisions that we're not going to all like. If we could be a country that was a little more forward-thinking on being family-friendly and helping people have more children, I think we might be in a different situation where it's not unique just to us. But we're going to do our best to educate our kids and continue to attract them to this district. And that's what we can do. Mrs. Windsor?
Thank you, President Yudish, for allowing me to speak again. I was wanting to ask Mr. Thompson if you wouldn't mind explaining, because we're going to be asked with declining enrollment, why are we rebuilding schools? And I know that the administration has been very thoughtful, and it's been actually a lengthy process to determine which direction to go with our aging buildings. But can you explain or put into a nutshell the study that was done about energy and maintenance of buildings and why the decision was made to go after a bond to rebuild?
Yes, so first, from a broader level, there's operating budgets that the state gives us money for, and then there's bonding, and there's the bond dollars, which are different buckets and have to be kept separate. So if we have failing air conditioning in a school, we have a roof, a leaky roof, if we need to buy a new HVAC unit, we don't use our operating, we can't use our operating budget for that. We have to use a capital budget or the bond budget. And so having that bond is not, I would love to say, oh, we've got these bond dollars, let's use it to fix the salary issues, let's use it to fix the budget shortfall. We can't do that, because that's not what that money is for. That money is for critical maintenance and then the rebuilding of schools. So they have to be separate on that side. One of the other things we're using the bond dollars for, which I think you talked to a little bit, is trying to leverage the bond to lower our operating costs. So when we are installing solar at various sites, that then reduces our electricity usage, and we're paying for the electricity out of our operating fund. And our teacher salaries come out of our operating fund. So if we can use less electricity, we can have more money left over for the teachers. So it's kind of, in a way, we can use the bond dollars to then increase the amount of money we have in operating. But we can't just pay the teachers out of bond, so we do it that way. Unexciting things like new light bulbs that are more energy efficient, building automation for the HVAC systems. These are not things that you're gonna see, but they're gonna cost dollars on the bond side that then will save money on the operating side. So we're trying to do a lot of that. Some of the things you will see at the schools is more xeriscaping, desert landscape, turf, to eliminate the need for water, to eliminate the need for someone to go and mow that grass, to maintain it. Those costs, the water, the people, they come out of the operating budget. So if we can save money on that, we can have more money for teachers. We have to use the bond dollars to do that. A lot of our schools that we have are very old. Our HVAC systems are in need of replacement. It's Arizona, it's 110 degrees out. If the HVAC goes down, we have to close schools like we did a couple weeks ago. So using those bond dollars to make sure that things are running and replacing the 50-year-old HVAC units is something we need to do with bonds. So yes, we have a budget shortfall in operating, and we are asking for a bond, but those are different buckets that we can't mix the money on. We can use it to help, but we can't just use it to pay the employees in the operating side. So I hope that addressed it.
Another thing, when you looked at his presentation, if you can go back, we shift capital money over to M&O. And so having bonds allows us to do that. If we did not have bonds, we could not shift that money over to M&O, which means that $5 million, I think it was up there, we would probably have to save that to do the costs for operating the air condition and all the things that go wrong with it too. So the bonds that our community has greatly supported us with, they actually have given us the flexibility for all these years to be able to shift that money over into our M&O side, so that we could keep having the class sizes that we have, and not have to go through with other districts are really talking about right now of closing schools. Our biggest cost is always teachers. If you look at anybody's budget, teacher salaries and benefits that we pay on those is our hugest cost in our M&O side. And so we've been doing a great job of keeping teachers and not saying, oh, we're cutting. But as I said 3 years ago, we're at that point where we can't keep operating as a district of 10,000 students when we don't have that anymore. And so we have to start making some tough decisions. But this was coming. Unless we gain students, this was gonna come. And we're now there. And I always want to tell people ADM and student enrollment is two different things. And so if you look and say, what is your student enrollment? I think the number is like 9,000. 9,550. But then you have to think about, from an ADM standpoint, we have like 1,000 kindergartners. We actually, in ADM, that's 500 because we only get half-time funded on that. And so we have over 9,000, but with kindergartners, 1,000, ADM, we only get half of that, so that's 500 and stuff like that. And then there's weights. So every kid gets a weight. So if you're in K through 3, there's a weight to that. So when you get that ADM, that is weighted on top of it. So I think a student that receives special education services as autistic is a 4.7 weight. And so that student would be weighted as like 4 students versus 1 student, if that makes sense. So that's where it hits us, is that weighted ADM. It's a really big hit for us.
Thank you, Dr. Driscoll and Mr. Thompson. I'm a stickler for the use of academic vocabulary. So instead of saying we can't use it, which is often left to people's own interpretation of what can't use means, it's not our policies that determine that we can't use this pot of money to cover this pot's responsibilities. It's determined by,
The state law.
and federal law, through USFR, right? Like there's specific rules with those.
Well, the USFR is
Right.
state, but for the bonds, yes.
Okay.
And we have other, federal grants that we can only use for specific things as well. So yes,
Okay.
I'd love to do it, but we would not be allowed.
Right.
We would get in trouble.
Yes, okay, thank you. And I just want to remind everybody who's been, our devoted, 2 followers, that we did a thorough survey about energy consumption and maintenance costs, and it was clear that if we do not rebuild certain schools, that we are actually expending more money to maintain what we have. And it's like what my parents would say about nickeling and diming a car. I think we drove that Ford LTD until, we couldn't even open the door. We had to slide through on the passenger side. My cousin bought it and he couldn't turn it on with a key anymore, and he had to put a screwdriver in it to shift the gears. Like, you can nickel and dime to a point where you're doing so much that it no longer is effective or cost efficient for you to have what you already have. And I know that's a hard concept when we're talking about buildings. And so if you can think about it in terms of machines, it's easier in my mind, because machines break down and our buildings have all these machines running it. And it's not the brick that is the problem, it's all the systems that are built into the building that have to be replaced. So I hope people are thinking about that when they're considering what they need to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. 2.02, this is a close of a public hearing, and 3.01 is now, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3.02, approval of tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Open for discussion. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. 4.01, approval modification of minutes from the August 6, 2025 governing board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes from the August 6th governing board meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. 5.01, approval of consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye, motion passes. I'd like to thank Vanguard, Arizona State University, Contexture, The Undie Chest, and Sprouts Healthy Communities for donating more than $39,000 worth of items or experiences to best support our students and staff. Again, thank you. 6.01, celebrate excellence. I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Driscoll.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Tonight I have a few items to celebrate. Curry Elementary first grade teacher Deborah Woodrum kicked off the school year with her first Family Friday. As part of this monthly tradition, families are invited into classrooms to participate in hands-on activities alongside their child. On this first Family Friday, parents and guardians observed a Haggerty phonics lesson, practiced sight words, and played a matching game using CVC words. Ms. Woodrum, it took me like 2 hours, making sure I said that right, has hosted Family Fridays throughout her 10-plus year career as a way to create a welcoming space for families to connect with the classroom and feel like true partners in their child's education. After observing her success, last year, other Curry teachers also hosted their own Family Fridays. Mosley Middle School students recently participated in a culture show and tell in Dr. Scrum's 6th grade social studies class. Students brought an item from home they felt best represented part of their own culture to share with the class. This activity aimed to build an understanding and respect for the many perspectives and experiences in their classroom community. It also set the expectation for thoughtful conversations around the ancient cultures they would study in class this year. Since launching Parent Square this year, our school communities have worked hard to learn the platform and strengthen communications with families. In the first 4 weeks of the school year, schools have embraced Parent Square as their primary way to connect with families. 99% of student families are connectable through the platform. Over 36,000 direct messages have been exchanged between teachers, staffs, and families. Schools and teachers have made over 2,000 posts, and over 1,700 photos have been shared. And that concludes my Celebrate Excellence for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Driscoll. Item 7.01, open call to the public. We have 3 blue cards this evening. We have a quick video to watch before we proceed.
Persons wishing to address the board must fill out the Request to Address the Board card and submit it to the board's executive coordinator prior to the start of the board meeting. Per Governing Board Policy BEDH, Public Participation at Board Meetings, the Governing Board President shall set a time limit on the length of the comment period. Also per Governing Board Policy BEDH, for items on the agenda, individuals will be called upon when the item is introduced. For topics not on the agenda, citizens will be called upon during this portion of the meeting under Open Call to the Public. In compliance with the open meeting law, the governing board will neither discuss nor take action on items raised during this portion of the agenda. When necessary, issues will be taken under advisement and placed on a subsequent agenda. During the open call to the public, issues addressed must be within the jurisdiction of the board.
The time limit for this governing board meeting will be 3 minutes each, and we will begin with Winona Miller.
Hello, Governing Board. Yat A. Onaltua She'e Winona Miller Yanshe. Good evening, board members. My name is Winona, and I am a parent and a member of the Native American Parent Committee Program. I am here tonight to speak on behalf of our students and families and to advocate for the well-being and academic success for our Indigenous youth. I am proposing a vital step towards creating a more inclusive and equitable school environment for all of our students by implementing a professional development day on October 13th, which is Indigenous Peoples Day. I understand, according to the school calendar, that that day is professional development day for teachers and a non-school day for students. This would be focused on Indigenous cultural awareness. Our Native American Parent Committee is ready to partner with the district leadership to help and find a qualified course that can be virtual and accessible to all staff and might not even come with a charge. Thank you so much.
The next card is for Talisha Martinez.
Hello, my name is Talisha Martinez, our maiden name. I am a parent of a student in the district and a member of the Native American Parent Committee. I am here tonight to speak about two related matters that are critical to our student safety, parental rights, and cultural equity. First, we respectfully request that our district implement a policy requiring permission slips for all activity involving significant or sensitive content, such as the upcoming eclipse and any classroom dissection. This practice ensures that parents are fully informed and have the right to provide consent for their children's participation in activities that may conflict with their family's values or beliefs. Second, building on the principle of informed consent and cultural respect, we are requesting that the district recognize that the day of the eclipse as an excuse for Indigenous students. Thank you.
Lisa Sosu, did I say that correctly? It's Sosi. Sosi, okay. I didn't know if it was you and I. Sorry about that. Thank you for correcting me.
Thank you so much. My name's Lisa Sosi. I'm a parent of a Holdeman student, and I'm also a two-year member of the Native American Parent Committee. And what we're asking is to streamline the communication. Our committee provides a vital link between the Native American community and the school district. A regular agenda item would be to provide a formal, reliable channel for direct communication, ensuring that this information is shared in a consistent and timely manner. This would also help us avoid miscommunication and address concerns proactively in collaboration with the district. That's it. Thank you.
Item 8.01, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of the revision to the fiscal year 2025-2026 annual expenditure budget. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Open for discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. 8.02, second review and adoption of proposed changes to governing board policy EB, environmental and safety program. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adopt the proposed changes to the governing board GCQF, am I on the right one? Sorry,
It's okay.
yes. Motion to adopt the proposed changes to governing board policy EB, environmental and safety program.
There you go. Do I have a second?
Second.
Open for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. 8.03, second review and adoption of proposed changes to governing board policy GCQF, discipline, suspension, and dismissal of professional staff members. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve proposed changes to the governing board policy GCQF, discipline, suspension, and dismissal of professional staff members.
Do I have a second? Open for discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. 8.04, second review and adoption of proposed changes to governing board policy JLC, student health services and requirements. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the changes to governing board policy JLC, student health services and requirements.
Second? Open for discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. 8.05, second review and adoption of proposed changes to governing board policy JLCD, medicines, administering medicines to students. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adopt the proposed changes to JLCD, medicines administering medicines to students.
Second? Open for discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. 8.06, second review and adoption of proposed changes to governing board policy JLF, reporting child abuse, child protection. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adopt the proposed changes to governing board policy JLF, reporting child abuse, child protection.
Do I have a second? Second. Open for discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. 9.01, board member points of information. Mrs. Windsor.
Thank you, President Ewers. I had the opportunity to meet with Representative Contreras this past week, and oh my goodness. Oh yes, Senator Epstein. I was like, who's the other lovely lady? And to discuss the needs of schools and the challenges that we faced in funding. And I appreciate the interest that our elective legislators have in making sure that they advocate for what our needs are. So it was a wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Thompson? Nothing? Mr. Lemon?
Thank you, Madam President. I think I saw,
Oh, did you want to say something?
Eric, he is an Eric.
Mr. Miller?
but, yeah.
Mr. Thompson, would you like to say anything about your week? Okay, good. How about this, Mr. Miller? Still no. Oh, you little turd. All right. How about you, Mr. Lemon? Thank you.
Thank you. I think I saw there was going to be a webinar or online thing talking about the lawsuit that was just declared what the state has is unconstitutional. And so I think it's during the middle of the day, as I recall, but you got to register so then you can get the credentials to sign in. Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Thierry? I couldn't mess that one up. All right. Yes, I have had the unique opportunity. Currently during this time, a lot of our federal legislators are on their retreats, and then our state legislators haven't yet gone back full-time. I don't know if a lot of people are aware, but in the state of Arizona, we have a 6-month ledge, so we have a half-a-year ledge. And so during the summertime, one, they get to take a break, but two, when they get back, that's when they have time to meet with us. So I have been able to meet with every single one of our elected officials in our district. And we are very fortunate to have pro-public school legislators working for us and standing up for us and doing what they can. And they do want to know about what's going on with us. And they do celebrate our successes, and they are concerned about those things and the hard decisions that we're having to make. A few of them have asked me to congratulate you all and thank you all for what you're doing every single day for the kids who need public education in this state. So I wanted to pass that on to you. Greg Stanton, Representative Stanton, had a retreat last week, and we were able to meet with every single person in his department in the state of Arizona, also in Washington, D.C., so that we know who to go to for which type of thing, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. And education was on the top of their list of what this country needs to look at. Looking at how we're taking care of our families was high on the list, and making affordability so that our families can afford to have children and so they can feel comfortable. And then the safety of our children is a big deal. So I've had a lot of meetings over the last few weeks, but I'm grateful that they want to take the time to hear about us. And in return, I'm grateful that they give us that time so that we know. So with that said, it's 10.01, announcements and upcoming events. There'll be an agenda committee meeting on Wednesday, August 27th at 11 a.m. Labor Day is Monday, September 1st, 2025. All district schools and offices will be closed. The next regularly scheduled governing school board meeting is Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025 at 7 p.m. The 2025 ASBA 49th Annual Law Conference will be September 3rd through the 5th, 2025 at the JW Marriott Camelback Inn Resort and Spa, 5402 East Lincoln Drive, Phoenix 85253. The 2025 ASBA Delegate Assembly will be September 6, 2025 at the JW Marriott Camelback Inn Resort and Spa, 5402 East Lincoln Drive, Phoenix 85253. Now, with that said, a lot of us are getting invitations to all kinds of different things as people catch up. Is there something that we need to make sure Brittany knows that we're attending that I didn't mention here? So that we don't have an open meeting law violation. Everybody good? Okay. And then in regards to Dr. Driscoll, if we're on those Zoom meetings to get the ASBA update on what's happening legislatively, how does that affect?
I would say you need to report that so we can put it as a public, that you will be on that.
Okay, and that, I think, Jim, that email came out today, right? So we just need to forward that to Brittany. I'll forward it to you so that you have it. I will be on, Jim will be on, Ms. Windsor.
And I would say
Mr.
just to
Lemon.
be safe.
Yeah.
Just to be safe with
Yeah,
it.
we'll just go ahead and put it on there, okay? So, Mr. Lemon, thank you for bringing that up. Am I missing anything else that you guys can think of? Okay. 11.01, do I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all and have a good night.